Hello and welcome back to the NBA DFS Slate Breakdown for Wednesday, January 10th, 2024. We are here. We are going to be breaking down 8 games on the main slate. There are 10 games tonight, but the 2 late games are not on the slate once again, which, these platforms have been doing lately. So, we got 8 games to go over, and we're going to be breaking them all down. Now, before we do, I want to bring your attention to a couple of the promos down there. So, we got Parlay Play. It is a new affiliate that we have. Deposit $10, play through that. You can get 1 free month of Lion Star with that. You also do get $10 free with that. And then the Sleeper has up to a $500 match. You get 1 free month of Lion Star Premium if you deposit at least $10 there as well. The other 2, it's the normal $100 dollar for dollar match, but with both of them, Chalkboard and Underdog, you do get a free month of Lion Star, so you can try us out fairly cheap. You can get free money while trying us out. What's better than that? All right, let's get into it. So 8 games. There's quite a few injury stuff. I don't want to go over it, spot by spot because there is so much, but we will go over some of it while we're going through the slate as a whole. So, as always, start with point guard. Highest owned guys, Trey Jones, Tyrese Maxey, and Terry Rozier. All right, Trey Jones, he got into the starting lineup. The last 2 games played 34 and 35 minutes, which is just kind of crazy for the Spurs. They haven't been doing that. I put his minutes down at like 31.5. We have him at 30.5. So, there is absolutely potential he plays more, but even at 31.5 minutes, I'm getting a decent amount of him. You'd probably get a decent amount at 30.5 too. He's just in a decent spot here versus this Detroit team. This is the toilet bowl extraordinaire game, Spurs versus Pistons, but look, neither team plays much defense, and there shouldn't be a crazy blowout in this game, so it's a very interesting one to attack. Tyrese Maxey, we got Joel Embiid out, and DeAnthony Melton is questionable, so kind of an interesting spot for Maxey. It is also pace up spot because it is versus Atlanta, so he already plays a ton of minutes. Now, his usage is a little more secure, and now it's a pace up spot, and he's a guy that is super quick and likes to get out into transition, so that pace up can definitely benefit him quite a bit. Scary Terry, I don't mind going here. He's been producing at 9K, so I don't mind going back there today. I'm just not getting to a ton of them. I just have other point guards or shooting guards that I tend to be getting to a little bit over him. I don't mind going there. I'm going to have a little. I'm not mad if he's in my lineups. But right now, it is not somebody that I have a ton of. We'll see if that changes throughout the day, if there's any more news. But realistically, he can't play many more minutes, and the Hornets can't really have many other people out. So I don't even know if news would affect him that much. All right, so pivot guys. Jaden Ivey is still very high owned, but I do like him. I said last time that he was kind of my preferred over Hayes, and that worked out. He played really well, shot the ball 15 times, 5 boards, 6 assists. Without Cade, he's going to be, pretty much their number 1 or 2 scoring option with Bogdan, so I don't mind going to Ivy. Jordan McLaughlin, look, Mike Conley is out. So that's the big news on the Timberwolves. Along with him being out, Rudy Gobert is questionable. McLaughlin has been playing well lately. So he's been coming in, hasn't been playing very much, low teens as far as minutes, but averaging like 1.13 or 1.14 fantasy points per minute lately. And now with Conley out, I think there's a chance that he slides into the starting lineup. Now, I wouldn't put him at 1.13 points per minute if he's in the starting lineup because his usage will be way lower. But I do like him even if he's coming off the bench. I do think there's a chance that, they have Na starting with Anthony Edwards as the guards, and then McLaughlin comes off the bench and still plays 22, 24 minutes, something like that. But in a spot where, he very easily could see over 20 minutes, the way he's been producing, I'm a little intrigued. I wish he was a little bit lower owned, but, value like that's probably not going to go that under owned at this point in DFS. TJ McConnell, I do not mind. I am getting to a little bit. What I do have to say with him is, look, he didn't start the second half when Halliburton got hurt. He played extra minutes in the second half because Nembhard was in big time foul trouble. Nembhard only played like 2 minutes of the third because he got his fourth foul, and then he sat for a really long time while McConnell kind of took over. So it looks box score wise like McConnell pretty much just replaced Halliburton, and that's not what happened. Now, McConnell, without Halliburton, is averaging like 1.37 fantasy point per minute on FanDuel, 1.35 on Draftkings. So he is in a very, very good spot to produce, and he really only needs 24, 25 minutes, for the chance to kind of be around value. So I do like McConnell, but just kind of watch what happens as far as him starting or coming off the bench. If he's coming off the bench, it's hard to give him more than, 25, 26 minutes. Which now that makes him, kind of adequately priced. It's not like it's a value spot, but he is definitely a very good fantasy producer and could come through big time. So that's that with McConnell. Andrew Nembhard is actually who I'm getting more of. He started the second half. He had big time foul trouble last game, so he didn't really play much. He got his fourth foul in like the first minute or two of the third. And then right when he came back in the fourth, he got another foul and they pulled him. So he just didn't get much of an opportunity versus the Celtics. But now he's in an amazing spot. And last year, if you remember, he went through a range of games with Halliburton out and he was starting where he was just absolutely crushing. He's right around 0.95-ish fantasy points per minute in that starting spot at only 6K. I think I am very intrigued in what is a very, very good matchup versus the Wizards. So I will definitely be going there, especially if he is only 13%. D'Anthony Melton, once again, he is questionable, so can't be all in here, but I do like the spot. He has missed 3 games, so who knows if he plays or not, or if he's going to go be a full go if he does. So pay attention to news here. But I do think it's an interesting spot, and if he is not there, it only boosts up Maxey and Harris even more, just more usage going to them in what is a very, very good spot. All right, so we covered a lot of guys on point guard for FanDuel. We're going to cover less throughout the way with that. There's just a lot of guards that I like. DraftKings, high owned. Andrew Nembhard, way too cheap on DK. Terry Rozier, a little too cheap on DK. Tyrese Maxey in a very good spot with no Embiid. McLaughlin, same price, extremely interesting. Trey Jones, interesting. Kyle Lowry is out for the Heat, so Josh Richardson at 4,600 looks a little interesting too. Played 29 minutes both games. I'm going to get to a little bit, but not a ton. Now, over to point guard matchups. Best matchup on the board, TJ McConnell. We do have McConnell as starting right now. We'll see if that happens. I don't expect that to be the case. I do think news is going to come out throughout the day that Nembhard is starting, but we'll see what happens. Who knows what these coaches are going to do. After McConnell, Maxey looks great. De'Aaron Fox is in just an absolute smash spot on the road versus Charlotte. And Killian Hayes, he's fine. Good spot versus the Spurs. It's just that, he hasn't been playing very well lately. While he can definitely get it done, I'm not getting too much of him. All right, now shooting guard. High owned Terry Rozier, Jaden Ivey, Benedict Mathurin, Josh Richardson. Mathurin is fine. He is getting a little bit more ownership than I would expect. I don't think his role changes that much. Now, his usage goes up dramatically without Halliburton. He does become one of the higher usage guys on the team, but he is still going to come off the bench. His minutes are still going to be a little limited. You know, that 26, 28 range is pretty much where he lives. Maybe he gets up to 30 if he's playing really well. So I like him. I don't mind him. I just am not getting to a ton because I'm having a really hard time projecting him for too many minutes if he's coming off the bench, which I think he will. So he did come off the bench on the start of second half that last game. So that's kind of what I'm going off here. If he's in the starting lineup, I like him a little bit more because he's going to get more minutes. But that's really what it comes down to is I just think he's going to be coming off the bench and not get quite enough minutes to project very well. He very well could do it, but I am more down on him than other Pacers at this point. Tyler Hero, look, there is no Kyle Lowry, no Caleb Martin, already no Jimmy B. I think that versus OKC, you want to attack the point guard, and he's going to be playing point. We know he can produce big time. He's been right around the low 40s, since he's been back, and he should get 35 plus minutes in this game. So I like the spot for him. Don't mind going there whatsoever. Kevin Huerter re-entered the starting lineup, played 29 minutes last game. 4,800 is just a little too cheap when he is a guy that can easily get into the mid-30s and has many times throughout the season, and even has shown, some real big ceiling games when the shot's fallen. Nembhard, we talked about. Devin Vassell, I think, is interesting. Once again, it's that game versus the Pistons. It's high-paced game, which they can absolutely do. Vassell's been balling lately. I think it's a very interesting spot to attack here, and not many teams have a similar pace as to the Spurs. And when you get that and it's a bad team, Spurs are absolutely going to be a little interesting. Now, I do have to preface this with it's a Popovich coach team. Their minutes could change, at the drop of a hat. And they are frustrating to deal with as far as minutes. Never truly know what they're going to do there. All right, shooting guard on DraftKings, Nembhard, Rozier, and Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Walker could be back in the starting lineup. It's going to be him or McLaughlin in my eyes. And he's cheap enough where he makes a lot of sense. So don't hate going there. One thing I will say is that when he had his run of starts with Minnesota, a little over a month ago, he didn't really do much. And I wouldn't expect him to do much here unless Anthony Edwards is out also. His big blow-up game, Ant was out. So that's all I got to say about him. And let's move it over to the matchups here. So Derek White on the top of the list. I do think Derek White is fairly interesting. Getting to a little bit of him, not a ton. The issue here is Porzingis is out. So without Porzingis, there's a little more usage to go around, and White is one of the guys that picks it up. And I think one of the better spots to attack Minnesota is through the shooting guard. Robinson is just kind of meh. I think he's priced just adequately. Giddey, I really like the matchup. His price has got a little high again, and his minutes have leveled out a little bit, but you still do have a little bit of worry about his minutes. It's a real good spot for Bruce Brown. But, he only played 20 minutes last game. I think they really do need to keep Mathurin in this lineup. And if they do that, Bruce Brown's likely the casualty here. So they're going to need some scoring, and Mathurin is the one that does it, not him. So it's either Bruce Brown or Naismith that kind of gets booted in that scenario. Small forward, high owned, Tobias Harris, Miles Bridges, Benedict Mathurin. I really like Tobias. He has been crushing it lately. 50s, mid-40s, 50s without Embiid. And once again, we have no Embiid. Tobias is playing. He did sit out last game, but he's going to be back for this game. His price is down a little bit. There's no Embiid, no Rocco, possibly no Melton. It's a great spot for him. Kuzma, I do like, but there's just so many guys that I like in different price tiers that he's just not popping that much for me. Whereas Denny is, because he is a lot cheaper. Denny's been playing minutes again. We talked about this over this stretch where it was kind of annoying. He wasn't playing that many minutes, but he's kind of back to playing full tilt, 34, 31, 26, 33, 33. But I think he should be right around 31 and a half, 32, 33 minutes, something like that. And in a spot versus the Pacers, you have Washington versus the Pacers. I love the spot, super high paced. Washington has like the highest pace in the league, 105.8. Pacers are 105.3. Very, very few teams are in that 105 kind of area as far as pace, and it's rare to have two teams at that pace together, and might be a little bit of a closer game with a high total, so you gotta like some Wizards here. The other thing I gotta say about the Wizards is if this game really blows up, there's a lot of value on the Pacers. You're going to want one or two pieces from the Wizards to go with some of that value. So a little bit of a game stack there isn't a terrible idea. It'll help neutralize some of that higher ownership player as well. Other spots, Bojan Bogdanovic, once again. Spurs are one of the only 105 pace teams. I was all over Bogdan last night. He went for 41. He absolutely crushed. And look, it's this situation where he isn't too high priced and he has 50-point upside, and it really comes down to him and Ivy scoring. Those are the scorers on the team. And I think while they are still low priced, that's where you attack, especially in a very, very good matchup. Small forward, high owned on DK, Tobias Harris, Corey Kispert, and Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Kispert is kind of just whatever to me. He's been a bench piece playing, 18 to 22 minutes. Only way he's getting there is the shots falling, and I think there's way too much value on the board today that you don't have to go to him, so I'm out on that one. And small forward matchup wise, we got Denny, Harrison Barnes, Bogdan, Nick Batum, and Dort. Barnes is a shell of himself. Don't hate it because he's going to play minutes and he can get you mid-20s, 30. He hasn't done 30 plus. He's done 30 plus one time all season, and that's my issue with him is you're hoping for 6x, and the likelihood of anything on top of that is very, very slim. We talked about Bojan. Gotta like him. And power forward on FanDuel, we got Tobias, Domantas Sabonis, Kyle Kuzma, and I'll throw Jovic in there. So Tobias we covered. Look, Domantas Sabonis, we were all over yesterday. Said I loved it. He went for 73. Now he has a Hornets. Very, very good matchup for him once again. Only issue is it's a back-to-back, but last time he went to a back-to-back, 44 the first game, 71 the second time. Second game, 45 minutes. So they're definitely not that worried about playing him too many minutes on a back-to-back. Time before that, they had a back-to-back 35 minutes, then 39. I'm not worried about his minutes here, and I am totally fine to go back to Sabonis. Nikola Jovic, likely back in the starting lineup. Look, he's just straight up producing 1.07 fantasy point per minute as a starter. Without all the guys, being Lowry, Caleb, Jimmy Butler, he's like 1.2 fantasy point per minute. While in the starting lineup, I really struggle to put him at that. I would have him at like 1.1. I think he looks interesting. Maybe only gets 22, 23 minutes, but the guy is producing. So I don't mind going back there as a salary saver piece. And look, he got 35 last game, 30 the game, or 2 games before that. So we have a ceiling at his price too. I'm intrigued for sure. Danny, we talked about Bojan. We talked about Trace Jackson Davis. Look, this guy has been producing 1.19 fantasy per minute over his last, since he's been a starter, over his last 5 starts. But he's been producing when he comes off the bench. Also, I do have to say that I only like playing him if he's a starter just because of the minutes. If he's coming off the bench, I'm going to put him at 22, 24 minutes. If he's a starter, I think he could get 26. He had 23, so 29, 24, and 27 were the minutes for his 3 games he started. And I think 26.5, what we have, is probably the right spot to put him. And frankly, he's just producing. There's still no Draymond Green, no Chris Paul. With Steph Curry on the court, he's 1.2 fantasy points per minute. So I'm absolutely intrigued and gonna end up going back to him. And on to power forward on DraftKings. High owned Tobias Harris, Jalen Smith, Corey Crispert. So Jalen, look, we talked about him a couple times. I think he is absolutely fine to play. My issue with him is the minutes. We have him projected for 23. Very hard to project him for too much more than that. Last 2 games played 26, 27. If he's getting those, he can pay off that 5K price. The one thing is with Turner on the court, he's like, barely over 1 fantasy per minute guy. However, with Turner off, he's closer to 1.2. So that's my issue with him starting, but I don't mind going here. If he can get 26 minutes, he looks good. If you put him at 23, he's probably a little too pricey to get there. But very good matchup, so don't mind it. Crisper we talk about, and we'll go to matchups on the power forward. We got Kyle Kuzma leading the way. Power forwards have just had their way with the Pacers. I mean, Tatum put up only almost 70. Greek Freak, 60 and 77. Randall, almost 50. Patrick Williams, almost 40. Banchero, 50. Jared Jackson, 32. So we've seen some real big games from power forward. So I understand if you want to go Kuzma. Bridges, look, it comes down to Rozier and Bridges for this Hornets team, along with a little bit of Brandon Miller mixed in there. But those two have to produce for the Hornets to have any chance. Bridges is almost a K cheaper than Rozier, so I totally get if you want to go there, and he's been living in that mid-40s. And Javik is up here on the best matchups, just FYI. On to center, we got Paul Reed, Domantas Sabonis, and Jalen Duren. Paul Reed, this is a tough one here. So he is super chalky. He is a good fantasy producer, but he also gets in foul trouble. And that's my issue here. We have him at 25 minutes. He played 25 minutes. Last game he started 28, 24, 32, 17. So his minutes as a starter is kind of all over the place. Pretty hard to predict. I think 25, 26 is probably the way you need to do it in this matchup. But a lot can happen. He has a huge range of outcomes. He's only around a fantasy point per minute or so when he's starting. He's 5,500. The math at 25 minutes just doesn't totally make sense for his ownership. I will have some. I'm just not going to go overboard. I think he might be going a little bit too over-owned with just the range of outcomes that he can have. Yes, he can absolutely break the slate, and that's why I'm saying, I'm going to have a little. I'm just not going overboard. I think 33 or 35% is just too much. Sabonis, I love. Jalen Duren is in a good spot. Great fantasy producer. Minutes have kind of leveled out a little bit. I think 32 minutes tonight is decent and a very good game environment. is a guy that can get up to those 40, even 50 fantasy points. So don't mind going there. There is a little bit of issue with possible foul trouble covering Wemby, but I like it. And Trace we talked about, and DeMontis we talked about. So over on center on DK, Jalen, Obi Toppin, Trey Lyles. Obi Toppin is pretty much the same spot as Jalen. They are almost splitting minutes. Toppin is just cheaper, not quite as good of a fantasy producer. Trey Lyles, there's too much value to go there in my eyes. And on to center matchups. Miles Turner, Clint Cabela, Bam Adebayo on the top of the list. Fine with any of them. Should note that Capella is questionable today. So if he is out, Okongwu will come in. And he's definitely very interesting if he is the starter. All right, guys, that will do it for us today. Hope you enjoyed it. Please drop a like, comment, subscribe. All of that helps us a ton. And also, FYI, just a little programming note. Unfortunately, I have some family stuff I have to attend over the next week. And with that, my shows are going to be a little up in the air. Definitely will not have one tomorrow. Friday at this point is questionable. And then coming into Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I will probably have a show or two. So just FYI, don't totally know what's my work for the next week. Some just stuff I gotta take care of. All right, guys, I will talk to you. Hope all is well. Adios.